So these are my top 10 reads for 2024. So number 10, Blood over Brighthaven. You have this apprentice that is trying to become a mage, and when she becomes a high mage, she ends up finding the secrets of her society, and she ends up finding the really dark truth of the power system in this world. And I absolutely loved it. I love the commentary that is in that book, the commentary about racism, the commentary about white women tears, the commentary about being able to change once you learn and have new information, the commentary of self-reflection, because the main character does a lot of self-reflecting and then she ends up standing on business. So that's why I absolutely love Siona, and she is a badass character. Number 9 is Chain Gang All Stars. It is kind of like Dead Man Wonderland, if you've ever seen the anime or read the manga. Where prisoners are pitted against each other in these vicious games. And eventually, if you reach a certain status and after a bunch of killing, you end up getting set free. And they have different statuses that you can end up achieving, and this pits the prisoners against each other. And it creates this dynamic of some people are higher than others, and the longer you've been there, kind of like through seniority, you are more comfortable, you build more connections, you have more people around you just based off the fact that you have more resources. So then, like, when you're first starting out, people kind of just look at you like scum. You have nothing, you have no resources, and then you have to build yourself up and you have to build your seniority and all that. But not just that, there is this book speaks heavily on parasocial relationships and how we feel like we are owed a celebrity's time and energy and their entire being because they're in the spotlight. Everything they are belongs to us because they are this big time celebrity. And it talks about how toxic parasocial relationships can be too. It talks about the prison system, the technology in this dystopian society, because the technology in this dystopian society, you could see it possibly being in this real world. Like in our world, you could see how people in power could potentially use it, and how it could be used to control people, and how some things are already happening. And I keep telling everybody that I eventually can't wait for this to become a movie, because I know that this is either going to be a TV show, which it would be better to expand upon as a TV show, or a movie, and it would work really well as a movie too. But I feel like to really explore all the themes, it would work better as a mini series or a limited series where they can explore and expand and like go a little bit further from the ending and go beyond the ending, but still continue to explore the world and explore our world and all the flaws in it and everything that we need to fix. Number 8 is All Systems Red by Martha Wells, specifically the graphic audio. The graphic audio was my everything for this book. This book got me into wanting to read more science fiction books. All Systems Red, the graphic audio, just they say it in their catchphrase where it feels like a movie in your head, but this specific audiobook really feels like a movie in your head. So if you guys can get it from like Hoopla or Libby and you guys can borrow it there and read it that way, then I would do that, because this is definitely worth the read. And then you have a sassy robot, which I absolutely love, and it's very like quick paced and to the point, and all the character relationships are built really quickly, and it feels so effortless to the point where I read books now where I can see how a lot of these authors can really condense their character development. Some character development, it's needed because it's an overarching character development, but some character development, it's just it's long-winded and it needs to be. And I think All System Red, since they have such short books, but you get to know every single character and every single edition has their own personality in this world. I think I really realized that like a lot of authors are doing this thing where they just blab on a lot and they could just cut. There's a lot of places where authors can cut and make their stories a lot more efficient than they already are. Number 7, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And I love everything that I've read by R.F. Kuang. There's a lot of like social commentary and I like books like that. But Yellowface was one of those books this year where I read it within 24 hours. And I rarely read books that quickly. I have to really fucking like them to like sprint through them, which I have done for some of my reads in this top 10 list. And this is one of those books where I hated the main character so much that I needed to see what happened at the end and what happened to them, because they absolutely deserved everything that came their way. And I know this is being turned into a TV series. I think it's either Apple or something like that. And I think All Systems Red is also turning into a TV series. But Yellowface absolutely needs the adaptation because I feel like they can explore a lot of the problems of publishing, a lot of the problems of the idea that some of these people fake being another race because they feel like DEI somehow helps people get into publishing and it opens the door and it's a lot easier for people that are from diverse backgrounds and it helps them get into the door quicker because of DEI. And that's such a fucked mentality. But like, I would actually want them to use Yellowface as the vehicle to kind of explore that social commentary where we've had like 3 cases within the last 2 years of people pretending they're a race that they're not. We've had it where somebody was pretending to be an Asian person. We have somebody pretending to be Native American. We've had somebody pretending to be Latina. And I really would like to see them kind of like explore more of like the publishing world and some of these themes and some of this messaging and some of this like backward thinking that people have where it's just like, DEI helps people actually get their foot in the door and it makes it a lot easier. So why wouldn't I pretend to be another race? Which is like this fuck thinking, but like what makes people think that way? And Yellowface had a lot of that kind of thinking where it was just like, this author, like this main character who is an author is fucking batshit crazy. Like she's off her fucking rocker. So like what is happening? And it was one of those books where it just felt like I was watching a car crash. And I was just like, well, I don't want to turn away. But I also shouldn't be watching. Number 6 is The Final Strife by Sarah Al-Arifi. And I sped through the last 300 pages of the book, but the first 300 pages of this book, I really took my time because you're given a lot of world building really early on. And I love this fucking book and I love this fucking world. And it took me some time to get used to, and I kept having to rewind and rewind and rewind and highlight and dumb things down in the sidelines where I was just like, oh, in the margins where I was just like, oh, I'm not understanding this. So then I would have to dumb it down, and then I would have to look at the glossary too. And I love this book now. But it did take some time to like actually get into this book because there was just a lot of world building. So basically, it's about these two girls that were swapped at birth, and one was swapped at birth, and she's trying to infiltrate these trials in order to become a public figure and take down this entire society. And she kind of messes it all up. She gets super drugged up, and now the girl that she was swapped at birth with has to enter these trials, and she has to train her in these trials. So it's kind of a weird premise, and I didn't get that. Maybe I just didn't read the back cover copy properly, but I didn't get that from the back cover copy. I just thought it was like blood magic, and it is blood magic. But the premise, when you think about it, is so funny, but the story is so serious, and like everything that is explored is very serious. And but there are its moments where you really fall in love with the characters, and it happens so slow, and it's all slow burn. And I think that's what I loved about this book specifically, that it took its time to get to know every character properly, and it did it the right way, where if you're going to use the page count, and your page count is going to be thick, then I need you to be working overtime in every single scene, building character development. And this was the long game that I'm talking about, where some authors don't know how to do the long game and don't know how to do the overarching storyline, where if you're going to have like 600, 800 pages, then you might as well like work on character development. And some authors just kind of like blab and have their characters just walking around and eating food, and there's no real point to some of the scenes. Versus this book, every scene was very purposeful, everything was leading to the very end, and that's why I appreciate the Final Strife. And I also love Battle Drum too, but the Final Strife, that first book was so good. And the third book already came out this year, but I am so scared to find out the ending of that book. Same with Children of Blood and Bone, to the point where I'm just like kind of delaying finishing those two series, because I'm just like, I don't know. Same with Tale of the Heart Queen. I'm kind of like delaying that. Number 5 is She's a Keeper by A.K. Mulford, or Allie K. Mulford, which is their other pen name for the romance series, this series. And I love this whole series. I just got my arc for Crocodile Tears, so I'm excited for that. I loved all 3 books in this series, and I think I'm just saying She's a Keeper is number 5, but technically they're all in the same, this whole series is all in the same number 5 category. She's a Keeper, Party Animal, and Easy Tiger, every single one of those books I absolutely adored. And every single one of those romances I fucking loved to the moon. And they have these quirky characters, and they're all about zookeepers falling in love with people that come to this island. These zookeepers are this big family that maintains this island that is also a zoo, and they take in a bunch of college students, and they have them fill up like their service hours, or like their required hours for their resume, something like that. And they take on all these apprentices, and every once in a while they get an apprentice that they like to get spicy with. So that's why I absolutely love this series. This series has, every time I've had a low, this series has come into my life, and it has just like brightened up my day. And like, for the past couple of weeks, I haven't really been able to read anything, and I've been kind of depressed espresso. And that kind of happened the first time around, where She's a Keeper came out and Arc Opportunities came out, and I was like, well, let me read this, because I really want to get into something new. And it was one of those low moments in my year, and it kind of brought me back up, and it kind of brought me back into reading and my love for reading. And they're all just zookeeper romances, with animals, with a little bit of drama, with a little bit of family drama, with some sad stuff going on. And I think it really it knows the balancing act of how to really bring out the emotions from all these sad moments, but really how to like bring in all the emotions of all these happy moments and all these moments where it's like something really funny and all the characters feel so real. If I needed to equate it to anything, it's like an adult version of a Disney Channel original movie. So like if you miss Disney Channel original movies, but you want to read something like a Disney Channel original movie, then you would read something like this, because She's a Keeper is just She's a Keeper, and the rest of those books are just Disney Channel original movies, adult versions though. Number 4 is Blood and Brujas, and I need the second book of this. Blood and Brujas by Michaela D. Ornero. She cooked when she did this, and I think I didn't realize how much I liked this book until after I read it, because I read it and I was like, this is so different than a lot of other fantasy books. And I think a lot of other fantasy books, they have this like beat pattern of this is the storyline, this is when things are going to happen. And like they follow the beats, the story beats of like, okay, here's the initial reaction of something happening, here's the plot, okay, let's do the thing. Versus this book kind of just sucks you in, and it's like, okay, we're in the middle of a battle scene in the very first chapter, and then everybody gets knocked out by this shadow thing, and the main character wakes up and her mom is signing her away to the king from the other kingdom that is opposing them completely. And her mom is doing this so that she can protect their witches and so that her witches can survive. But it puts her in a really shitty fucking scenario. It puts her in a really shitty situation, but then it kind of, her situation gets a little bit better. It gets a little bit white shoes. I love the two love interests that are not the bad guy, because the bad guy and the mom in this series, they're a piece of shit. They're a piece of shit. And I really like the witchy aspects of this book. I think I want more of the witchy aspects of the book. I like the sapphic aspects of the book. I love the bisexual aspects of this book. I love the monster aspects of the book, the portals, there was just so much in this book that it felt kind of like watching a TV series, but there was just so much in this book that I loved, that I think once I finished it, I realized that I was like, oh, I really enjoyed that world. And it took me a minute to read this book because I read it slowly. But I think it was like kind of like a TV show where you like think back on it and you're like, as a whole, that was just so good. Kind of like when you watched Agatha All Along, and then like you think about the whole show as a whole, and you're just like, the whole show is just amazing, but every individual episode did that. Like every individual episode together made it amazing, but the whole show as a whole is amazing. I definitely am waiting for book 2 for that one. Definitely waiting for book 2 for that one, which is coming out this year. Number 3, which was actually a recommendation from Michaela Diornado, and this was also a recommendation from my good friend Amanda. Absolutely love this next book. Number 3 is Trials of the Sun Queen, and it's kind of like Bachelor meets the Hunger Games. This one is one of those slow burns, and I wish it wasn't a slow burn, but it is a slow burn. And at first, I really liked the slow burn, but then it is slow burned a little bit too much for me. But I digress. The first book is so fucking good, and that first line, that bitch took my soap. reeled me in. I saw that TikTok and I was like, I need to read this book finally. So I started reading it. And this is another book that's just so different, where it does not follow the same beat patterns that most fantasy, romantasy books follow, where it's just like, okay, here's the plot, here's the starting thing that makes us go into the plot. Okay, we're going to do all these things, then here's the end. It wasn't cookie cutter to the point where I was just like, okay, I can predict everything. It was actually really dope, and the trial scenes, amazing. Amazing. I'm all for trials, deadly trials, and I think this first book really encapsulates how to do deadly trials and how to put everything at stake. And it makes you think, like, there's so many things that the author doesn't say, but are said through like characters doing things. And I absolutely love that shit. I love the implied meaning behind things. And there's one specific scene that I remember to this day, where a character was like willing to just, because they were just kind of over being in the trials, so they were contemplating, and it the main character kind of saves them, and that might be a minor spoiler, but the main character kind of saves them. But afterward, the character thinks, and they're like, I didn't want to, like, but like, I mean, in that moment, it was there, and like you could, in the actual scene, the trial scene, you can actually see the character like contemplating it, and it's actually really fucking sad. I also enjoyed the dual narration of this. And I cannot wait for the last book in the series, because I zipped through book 1, 2, and 3. I binged them, and I waited for book 4, and it was my hyperfixation for 1, 2, and 3 to read them all together. And I feel like I should have waited for book 4 to come out, because then I would have binged the entire series. And then like I go through these phases of like having a hyperfixation series, and then if I lose it, then I lose it, and then I can't get back into it. And like I've been trying to get back into Tale of the Heart Queen, and I've been trying, but I've just been like in this kind of like reading, so I'm tired. I've just been exhausted from work. Number 2, an absolutely remarkable thing by Hank Green. I love this book. It was giving Inception. It is about this person that comes across this thing that she thinks is an art installation, and her friends record it, and they post it online, and it turns out to be this alien, and this alien is trying to communicate with the humans after this viral video, and it's communicating to different humans all across the world through their dreams. And this is where like the Inception thing kind of happens, where it feels like the robot is trying to give messages and control people through their dreams. So all these different people across the world kind of join this like Reddit page, where they're all having dreams, and they're all going through this kind of like simulation, where somebody does one part of a dream, and then they somebody else does another part of a dream, and then they get stuck, and then they wake up. So then they post kind of like the answer to how to get past that level, or how to get past that part of the dream. So then the next person solves the issue, and the next person solves the issue, and then different cultures have the answer to these issues, and different religions and different backgrounds, and all these people have to come together to like kind of unite and solve this answer, until finally like they get through this riddle. And I absolutely love this book. I think this was another one of those reads where I read pretty quickly. This She's a Keeper and Yellowface. This one I read within 2 to 4 hours. And the very next day, because a Barnes and Noble employee recommended this to me. And they were like, oh yeah, we'll add 50% off if you get this book, and then just kind of go. Because I went to the Barnes and Noble super late. So they were like, we'll put a 50% off sticker in this book so you can buy one, get one. But kind of like, just vamoose, like get out of here. So the very next afternoon, I was at that Barnes and Noble, like, I need the second book now. And they were like, you already finished the first. And I was like, yep. So I was quick. I was quick on finishing that series. I think I finished it within 2 to 3 days. And I don't really remember the second book, but I do remember like which characters ended up together. And I remember part of it where I don't even want to spoil it, but I I love this book so much, and I still think about this book to this day. And my number one is like that too. My number one pick for this top 10, where I think about an absolutely remarkable thing nonstop. And if somebody were to be like, what's your Roman Empire? It'd be two things. It'd be House of Frank, and it would be an absolutely remarkable thing. Speaking of, House of Frank is my number one pick of this year. If I had to describe it, it's this witch that doesn't have powers. She comes to this arboretum, and she's supposed to plant her sister's ashes into the ground in the special arboretum that ends up growing trees from the ashes, and she can't get herself to do it. So in the meantime, she does odd jobs around this arboretum, and there's this house that a bunch of eccentric creatures and a bunch of eccentric beings live in it, and they all are going through grief, and they are all going through the same journey that the main character is going through, which is this journey of grief, but it all appears different. So the main character has the same issue as everybody else in this house, but they all deal with it in different ways. They all cope with grief in different ways. They all react to it in different ways. So some people do it in healthy ways. Some people do it in self-destructive ways. Some people try to disassociate. And you learn about all these characters so quickly, and it's so efficient in kind of like the all systems red kind of way, where you learn about all of these characters in such a short amount of time. And this book is maybe like 300, 400 pages, but they work. The author works to get all these characters fleshed out, and by the end of the book you see these three characters going on this journey of grief together, and they are all going on it in different ways, like I said before, but that's what leads to the ending. And it's not really a spoiler, but I love how the author was able to play with that dynamic of everybody has the same storyline, but they're different characters, so they would make different decisions, which would end up branching out to different story arcs, which would branch out to different story decisions and different endings for different characters. And I think this book was the one that made me cry the most this year. I even posted a video over on TikTok where I was just straight up bawling, because this is another one of those books where the author told a lot of the story without having to say it. It was just implied, and I kind of like those things, because then you're thinking about it and you're like, you think about the ramifications of all these characters' decisions, and you think about what a character was thinking and why would they do this, and then you kind of think a little bit further, and once you find the answer without having to be told, you're kind of just left fucking sad, because you're just like, well, Like, they tore my heart up and then they sewed it right back together. And I I love how this author writes, and anything this author ever writes, I would read. And this is their debut. This is their debut novel, and it's already fucking phenomenal. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this is their debut novel, and I would read anything they put out. Like, if they were to put out a napkin as a short story and write one sentence, three sentences, I would read it every fucking time they would do it. And the ending, chef's kiss. It's chef's kiss. And I don't want to spoil it any more than I've already probably spoiled it. But House of Frank was one of those, is one of those books, besides an absolutely remarkable thing, that I think about nonstop. Like, there are just moments where I think about the characters and I think, I hope they're okay, and I hope they're happy, and I hope that they're completely fine. Those were my top reads of 2024. I absolutely love those books. I think about these books to this day. I kind of don't want to finish some of these series because I don't want to let go of some of these characters. I'm looking at you, The Ending Fire, which is the Final Strife. I'm looking at you, Tale of the Heart Queen. I'm looking at you, Children of Blood and Bone. I kind of don't want to finish these series because I don't want to let go of these characters. And I sometimes delay finishing books in order to not let go of characters, which has been my problem with trying to finish these series. Because the books are out. I just don't want to. I don't want to let go of these characters. And I don't want to rip off that bandage yet. I quick honorable mentions. Lights Out. It's like a stalker nurse romance, but you have an awesome cat daddy. Chef's kiss. Monstrilio, you have a mom who grows a monster out of her dead child's liver, and she kind of raises it as if it is her child, even though her child has passed away. And the effects of having to raise this monster. Iron Widow, it's basically like Power Rangers and Transformers mixed together. They can fight monsters together. Butcher and the Blackbird, you have two serial killers that are in this competition to kill bad serial killers. And it's this slow burn romance, but it's so good. It is so good. What else? What else did I miss? If I had to list books really quickly, I liked Tender is the Flesh, Most Ardently, and if I had to pick one more book, Five Broken Blades. So Tender is the Flesh, Most Ardently, and Five Broken Blades. And those are my honorable mentions. I loved this year's of This was my favorite year of reading. It brought a lot of new authors. It brought a lot of diverse authors. It brought a lot of LGBTQ authors. It brought a lot of my favorite books. Like, this year, I found so many of my favorite books because I felt fucking represented. And I think it took me too long to read diverse books and read more diverse books instead of trying to catch up and stay with what is popular. And I think I learned my lesson in 2024 that I need to continue to read diverse books. Because not all of them are going to be for me, but the ones that are going to be for me, they're going to show up and show the fuck out. If you like this video, go ahead and hit subscribe below. Go ahead and hit like. If you didn't like this video, titty committee.